Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA. Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, which indubitably means that we are going to be in conversation with Atiba, and in the second hour, Dr. S. Todd Yeary. I'm particularly honored that Atiba is here today. He is our regular contributor on Wednesdays. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, NBCSL. He is Strategic Alliance Consultant and President of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, 96.3 WHUR, and the One America News Network. He most recently was a guest on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced in Washington, D.C., and the political newspaper The Hill. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our conversations with none other than yourself. Atiba might be muted. Hi, Atiba.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. Atiba, I'm hoping that we can have a conversation about faith, hope, and fear. Seemingly an infinite triangle when we look at the national political landscape across our country. Obviously, that includes the saber rattling in Venezuela by the President of the United States, the misuse of the pardon power, or better yet, the negative use of the pardon power, because as Americans, we've not seen its positive use. We'll have a conversation about that. There's so much going on in the world, Atiba, and I know that you follow just about every single detail. Share with us some of your thoughts about the current state of affairs.
We're up the creek. I mean, there's a lot. You know, the main thing, though, that I think that is important to note, and there's, unfortunately, we can't go back to the past and change anything. But, when we're talking to our family and friends about voting and people say my vote doesn't count, I think we're going through this right now because we have to feel the things and the reasons why people like John Lewis were so adamant about voting. And, the situation and where we are, and people, and on the flip side, I think those people that we talk to who say their votes don't count, or that people that they vote for don't do the things that they want them to do, I think we should listen to them too, because we're really seeing the power of the presidency. And we've often been told the president can't do this, the president can't do that. Well, this guy is really showing us that the president can do a lot more than what we thought.
And I find that somewhat fascinating, because I think at the very inception of the country, this is a question that I wrestled with for nearly 3 years in prison. And I certainly arrived at a conclusion in solitary confinement. My mind in a very narrow hole produces a lot. I wish I could have posted on Facebook every single day while I was incarcerated, but I can share with you that I believe I did find the hope. I think I found it in a book that I ultimately self-published called The Finger of God. And in that book, I had to answer for myself a question. Coming out of the Revolutionary War, what was it that the founding fathers, albeit in their absolute imperfection, what is it that they had to do in order to establish, for white men only, their faith, which is obviously different than our own, in the Constitution of the United States? And what I excavated was an experiment that they must have engaged in as a life work. They placed something in the Constitution called the finger of God. Alexander Hamilton confirms this 30 days in the New York Advertiser newspaper. He says, "For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution." After all, he was there. 30 days later, he says, "I esteem the Constitution." And this is the Constitution without the Bill of Rights. "I esteem the Constitution. For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution, but for the finger of God, we never would have agreed on anything in it. We wouldn't have agreed on the Supreme Court, Congress of the United States, or even the powers of the presidency, but they did agree on the finger of God." And in Federalist number 37, James Madison says that it is impossible for a man of pious reflection not to perceive in it, meaning the Constitution, the finger of the almighty hand, which is signally responsible for the rebellion. So faith was a factor, albeit it may not be our faith, but when we understand their faith, much of what we're seeing in the presidency right now is the negative application of the power. But if it's not in the hands of a person of character, then the country itself is not on the foundation as intended. So I heard hope in what you responded to my question in Atiba when you said we should be voting, and there are consequences to not voting. But at the same time, I feel as an American, and I think we all do, there is an infinite hope, at least I believe, in the experiment itself and the ability to change it. Your thoughts on faith and hope before we dig in when we come forward into the fear.
Yeah. So when we come back, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But the reason why the United States, the colonists, went to war against England was because they did not like the right way that royalty or the king was imposing his will on the people. We're right back there again in terms of some examples, in terms of what we see in terms of the methodology of this administration. But, in terms of hope, I often tell people in my conversations that I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And I believe that all of us are.
I think that's absolutely right. Our very important conversation today will deal with faith, hope, and fear. And I can't think of a better person to be in conversation with at this hour than Atiba. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Our conversations with Atiba.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes, if you're afraid to open your mail because IRS collection letters could be coming, listen carefully. The IRS is cracking down, taking paychecks, freezing bank accounts, revoking passports. That's a fact. But here's what most people don't know. There are official tax relief programs designed to help struggling taxpayers. Programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Optima's award-winning team will fight to protect your paycheck, your passport, and your property. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals will work tirelessly to get you the best deal possible with the IRS. Everyday penalties and interest keep piling up, so don't wait. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays and our regular conversations. Just before we return to our conversation, our producer has a clip that she wants to play to help frame this conversation with how the Soviet Union was created after the Cold War and the process for corrupt, charactered leadership and the change to the kind of leadership, even in their society, that represented a change in the world. Why don't we run that clip?
Today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial today by signing up at audible.com/infographics. Go to audible.com/infographics or text infographics to 500-500 to get started. Christmas Day, 1991. Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev announced, "We are living in a new world." And with these 7 words, the Soviet Union was dissolved and Gorbachev stepped down from his post. After 40 years of the Cold War and the threat of a nuclear holocaust, the world's largest communist state broke up into 15 independent republics, meaning the USA was now handed the accolade of New World Superpower. At its strongest, the Soviet Union had over 5 million soldiers stationed around the world, and they all stepped down without a shot being fired under the new regime. Today, we will explore exactly what came to pass in this episode of the Infographic Show. How and why did the Soviet Union collapse? In the late 1980s, the Soviet Union appeared to be somewhat of a powerhouse, exhibiting a rigid recovery from the invasion of Afghanistan and with an economy that appeared to be performing well. The Union appeared from the surface as powerful as it was back in the 1950s. But looks can be deceiving. Beneath the facade, the Soviet Union was splitting apart, and it had been happening for decades. Although there were many factors at play, some reasons were as follows. Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power in 1985 with plans to reform the nation with a hybrid communist-capitalist system similar to modern-day China. He also planned to ease restrictions on freedom of speech and religion. Before this, millions of Soviets were arrested for speaking out against the state. However, his plan backfired as he discovered that the loosening of control over the people and reforming political restrictions meant the people used their newfound powers to critique the government until they eventually succeeded in pushing for reform. This brand of communism had operated historically on tight central control. The loosening of control led to the abandonment of the entire construct. Back in the days of Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and Joseph Stalin, the Soviets were led with strong ideological beliefs tied to Marxism. By the 1960s, the radical policies of the past leaders were abandoned in favor of a more conservative approach. By the 1970s, the Soviet people noticed the rise of the political elite who lived in posh homes, ate in fancy restaurants, and spent their vacations at luxury ski resorts, while millions of average Joes died from starvation. Younger generations were less keen to toe the line as their parents had, and were willing to step forward and protest for change. These newer generations were more in tune with world events, and slowly but surely began to pull at the strands of the political regime. Cold War tensions with the United States rose in the 70s and 80s, and with Ronald Reagan's leadership and the resulting increase in military spending, it seemed that the US had won the nuclear standoff. The Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, claimed to be able to blast Russian missiles as they fell, meaning, in theory, the US could win the long-running battle of wits. Reagan also managed to isolate the Soviets from the rest of the world economy, and without export sales in oil, the Soviet economy was severely weakened and limited. The Soviets were unable to turn a corner, and in the 1980s, breadlines were commonplace as poverty soared. Many people didn't have basic clothing or shoes, and under these conditions, it is only a matter of time before the people call out for regime change. And then there is the nation's structure itself. When you have 15 radically different republics under one flag with different ethnicities, cultures, and languages, there are bound to be inherent tensions. 1989 nationalist movements brought about regime change in Poland and Czechoslovakia as the Soviet satellite nations began to split away. As these nations began to pull away, the central apparatus was weakened until it finally collapsed. Due to all these factors, by 1991, the Soviet Union was unable to maintain a normal functioning economy and run a huge military simultaneously. Gorbachev, unwilling to go to war like his predecessors Lenin and Stalin might have done, instead pulled the plug on the military, and the 15 republics went their separate ways. Although a devoted Marxist, Gorbachev was an independent thinker who respected the need for reform and planned a restructuring of the economy. This, along with his vision to lessen the control held by central government and a move towards uncensored media, laid the path for total reform. The seeds were planted, and the Soviet Union was no more. So today we looked at the downfall of the Soviet Union. But
Atiba, I'm grateful for our producer for bringing that clip forward, because when the people start starving, when states like the state of Minnesota are threatened with their SNAP benefits if they don't provide the Trump regime certain data that they're requesting with respect to who are receiving those benefits, when the regime itself is willing to threaten the people and their ability to eat, it seems that revolution is inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing all these different things, and I know that we're highlighting right now Soviet Union, but these are things that have been going on all over the world, and they're things that, in some instances, we've also been responsible for. Right now, if you remember, there was a phrase that got Malcolm X into trouble after President Kennedy was assassinated, when he said, "It's like the chicken's coming home to roost." And right now, it does feel as if like the chickens are coming home to roost. I mean, we just had a government shutdown where we were talking about SNAP benefits for Minnesota, but where people all over the country, including our military, were suffering and were not getting their benefits because they were our benefits that they were accustomed to. So right now, I think we're also living at a time, Jesse, where it feels like I'm coming personally to a better understanding of Franklin Roosevelt's "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And, going through World War II and that era, what we see playing out today is literally what was going on 100 years ago in terms of transfer of wealth, in terms of the divisions, in terms of insecurity, and just things all over the world that seem to be imbalanced. And unfortunately, we seem to be part of what's causing that.
When I think about the fact that today, President George H.W. Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev announced the end of the Cold War, it seems to me, Atiba, that so much of the fear that the American people are feeling, that there is a direct correlation between a hot war, potentially with Venezuela, a president and a secretary of defense who are outside of the law and threatening not a cold war, but a hot one, and that they're threatening people's food benefits here in the United States, and that food itself is being leveraged by the regime. Is regime change inevitable through the vote?
That's where the hope comes in. And, and I think the question has to be, what and who are we putting our faith in? You spoke about the finger of God. I think that if you look at historically over the course of time, and whether or not you're a Muslim, Christian, Jew, that in scripture, there were periods of times that we read about where the prophets came. And the prophets came at times when people had lost faith in God. We seem to be comfortable with this idea of having "in God we trust" on our money, and yet money is used to corrupt. And it is a debilitating thing. And in terms of all the things that are going on today, one of the things also that I try to impress upon people is that we have the power to pull back our dollars. There's a national boycott that I think is going on right now. I don't know how it is impacting, because I'm here, these numbers in terms of Cyber Monday, there was supposed to be 14. So I don't know if it was trillion or $1 billion in sales. I don't know what happened with that. But in terms of the power of our vote, there are people that are in power, and there are people that are fearful that if they go and vote, that their vote is not going to matter. Something that I look at is fear is what if, faith is even if. So the thing is that I believe that that faith and hope go one and one together. I'm going to also just add this. If you look at a minister's, I don't want to say uniform, but what a minister might wear, not a suit, but in terms of with the collar.
A cloak, a collar, a robe.
I have come to understand that when the black and the white in that, even, we talk about black and white in terms of our skin color, even though my skin color, your skin color is not black, but that's how we align. But that black represents faith. The white in the collar represents hope. And so, if we can kind of look at that and just kind of like juxtapose that in terms of our lives, that we can have faith, but we also have hope, and we have hope, but we also need to have faith. In terms of fear, fear is debilitating. I think that we want to try to stay away from fear. And I think that's where, in the political context of where we live today, that's what a certain political party is playing on, is our fear. And I think we do better with faith and hope.
I find scripturally that faith without works is dead. It requires a balance of good deeds, of positive deeds, of a spirit energy that impacts people fundamentally different than the spirit energy that we're waking up to every single day in the United States. We're being tweeted to death with just negative energy that is really contrary to the idea of ministry. And I think that the early Americans, Atiba, whether we know or like the fact, nothing we can do about it, that our first 15 presidents tolerated slavery, and they obviously tolerated sexism and misogyny and almost every other kind of ism that we can imagine. In their faith, they saw the role of the presidency as ministry, ministering unto people who had been left behind. Clearly, anytime they combined the opposites of a commander of an army and a repriever partner in a single person, that is simply the function of the lineage of David. They saw themselves as restarting the disciple system in their new land that they called the New Israel, but they could never imagine that their new Israel would be the new Israel that we are looking at today. And I am not discussing the Israel in the Middle East. In fact, that was called Palestine at the time of the founding of this nation. They couldn't even imagine that there would be the modern Israel that is as a result of the response, and rightfully so, to the issues that confronted Jewish people during the war itself and the subsequent issues of anti-Semitism that have plagued their people since the inception of history? I raise these questions because the American people at this hour are not just looking for a Democrat or a Republican. They're looking for someone in ministry who has the kind of faith and character necessary to lift what my father called the boats that are stuck at the bottom, that all rising tides, the rising tide that Donald Trump talks about, the economy's doing well, gas prices are coming down. It's not true for those of us who are buying eggs. It's just not true. But the boats that are stuck at the bottom, the number of boats, not only votes, but boats that are stuck at the bottom of the rising tide is a vast sea of disparity.
I want to say preach.
And
I'm saying that I'm saying this, Jesse, because this is the time for people of faith. This is the time when people are looking for hope, and they're looking for the words that are going to give them the faith to take the first step. What is the saying? Faith is taking the first step without not seeing the staircase. And so what we have going on here, I don't think we win by saying, well, if we don't vote, this might not happen. I think we have to say, when we vote, this is going to happen. And when we recognize that we have the power, what is going on right now has been about taking away power. And when we come back after the break, I really hope to be able to talk a little bit more too in terms of how I see that as it related to President Obama and his hope and change agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that myself, because I also, before we go to the break, have to say this, that so much of the Obama administration, which we celebrate, and I was a part of helping create when he was a state senator and ultimate United States senator, and as a former core chairman of his national campaign, I was part of that effort. So much of what's taking place in our world because of racism is a reaction to the fact that they perceived we as a people made progress when an individual made progress, and maybe a political party made progress. And today we're being punished for that. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is the J Lunch Hour. Hope you're enjoying your ham sandwich, your chicken, and your lettuce, and your tomatoes, and your salads. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on the J Lunch program on Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago is racing to finalize its 2026 budget, with Black Mayor Brandon Johnson defending his proposed corporate head tax.
And if you've never gone hungry, you wouldn't know why I have that urgency.
He criticized aldermen pushing an alternative plan that includes higher trash and liquor fees. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back on the road with just weeks remaining in office. Today, he's in New Orleans for the African American Mayors Association and Combating Anti-Semitism Movement Conference. There, he'll join leaders from across the U.S. and North America to discuss strategies to fight anti-Semitism. And the Obama Presidential Center is set to open next June in Chicago's Jackson Park. The $800 million project faced delays from lawsuits and reviews, but began construction in 2021. The 20-acre site will feature a museum tower, library, auditorium, athletic center, park space, and a garden. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of its 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy plates, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to season 2 of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, celebrating our first anniversary this week of being on the radio. Please download the podcast. Please share the Facebook post if you're watching us on social media. And please put KBLA Talk 1580 under your Christmas tree. I believe on our website you can come and support KBLA, but you can also stop by KBLA in Leimert Park. And since we're not spending our money at Target, and we're not spending it with Amazon, and we are withdrawing our enthusiasm from people who have withdrawn their enthusiasm from us. Tiba was talking a few moments ago about not only using and leveraging our votes, but using and leveraging our dollars to do something about it. You got a little money on your hands because you're not shopping at Target, you're not shopping at Home Depot, you're not shopping at the other companies like Amazon that have been listed by, in part, the leadership of Jamal Bryant and others. Come on by and bring that check to KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba, just before we came forward, you said there was a thought that you wanted to share with our listening audience.
Yeah, and I don't want to be insensitive, but when I think back to the 8 years of President Obama, I think about a number of things. One, he won and he had a message of hope, and he talked about change. And by 2016, when he was leaving in office, one of the things he said is that you've always been the hope. You've always been the change. It was about the fact that that's in us. And a lot of us felt that we had to defend him because the other party was attacking him. And oftentimes our sensitivities came into play. So we played on they're just doing this because of racism. And that's not to say this wasn't about racism, but that was the surface. And that's not to say it's not about sexism. That's on the surface. It was that there are those in this country who want to be in power, who are really in the minority, who don't want us to hope. What he gave was us hope. And if you connect the dots, he couldn't win a presidency. And I was a registered Republican at the time. He couldn't win the presidency without getting Republican votes. He couldn't win the presidency without getting all these different communities to vote for him. And he did so because he offered hope. And when they attacked him, they attacked that hope. And we let our foot off the pedal. Because if you see what's happening now from 2008 to 2010, President Obama had the House and the Senate, as well as the presidency. And we see this president has the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And so let's try to mirror and kind of see, okay, so what happened in 2010 to change that? People came out and voted because they felt like their hope or that change wasn't happening fast enough. Well, my hope is that we recognize and get the lesson and realize that in 2010, when we could have sent more people to Congress to help, to push the agenda, that this go round now we have to do that again. But I see some hope when I'm looking all around the country in places like Mississippi and Georgia, when I'm looking at New Jersey and Virginia, when I'm looking at New York, and when I'm looking at what happened in Tennessee yesterday. Even though Democrats didn't win, they put a big dent in that 22% that the president received in 2024. So there's hope, and hope is coming, but we also have to recognize that we are the hope that we're looking for.
I want to talk about the birth of hope for a moment, because I don't want there to be any illusions, or I don't want to romanticize hope. We registered hundreds of thousands of voters in 1983 to elect Harold Washington, the mayor of Chicago. Harold Washington would not have been mayor in Chicago without voter registration. Insults from Mayor Jane Byrne and a series of mayors prior to Jane Byrne that led to his victory. To this day, Barack Obama says that Harold Washington's campaign inspired him, but Barack Obama wasn't in Chicago yet. He was at Harvard. I was part of that campaign to help elect Harold Washington. A number of people here helped shape hope on the ground in Chicago. Jesse Jackson here in Chicago. helped shape hope in 1984 and 1988. And you couldn't go to Jeremiah Wright's church, Trinity United Church of Christ on 95th Street here in Chicago, get married in that church. I was at Barack Obama's wedding to Michelle Obama, who attended Whitney Young High School with my sister. They were classmates and graduates. Santita was Michelle's best woman at the wedding. You can't grow up in Chicago in the 80s and in the 90s and in the early 2000s unless you came from a community that was shaping hope locally and propelled it in the form of national presidential campaigns that helped provide the message of hope that became Barack Obama. And I think we're going to have to dig, Atiba, a little bit deeper into the spiritual foundation of people who provided that construct, because we might find a few candidates here. You know, I like Gavin Newsom. I like J.B. Pritzker. They've not given me a reason to not like them. But their mettle on the question of hope has to be forged locally with local demands that hold them accountable. Tavis Smiley was part of that accountability, and Jesse Jackson Jr. was part of that accountability. Jim Clyburn was part of that accountability. Maxine Waters in California was part of that accountability. Cornel West was part of that accountability. And when the brother wanted to be more conservative than we would let him be, we walked him back to hope. When it was easy to do something in Iowa or to criticize or blame Black youth for something, it was easy to go in that direction, but then we walked him back to hope. No. We're not going to do that at Howard University. We're not going to have that debate at Howard University and criticize Black people like Clinton did us with Sister Soldier. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep hope alive. So framing hope at the local level helps frame these candidates. And that is a tension that is real and well-deserved and not separate and apart from local accountability. And people kept candidates' feet to the fire on the questions of the legitimate needs of the people, which ultimately manifested themselves in Barack Obama.
I'm wrestling with where to go with that one, because part of it too is that there is a national conversation that we, I think, deserve to have. And part of that national conversation goes to something that's really tearing at me, and that is parenting. We're seeing, whether or not we want to recognize it or acknowledge it or not, that there's crime that's really rampant in the country. I believe that it is tied to hopeless people feeling that their wages are too low. They don't have access to health care. Food is expensive. And yet we still don't talk about that there are a lot of people who have had children at very younger ages that goes back to, I think, the crack epidemic. And I'm saying a lot of things to unload or whatever with that. So when we say we walk people back from a conversation, or someone back from a conversation, I think part of the reason why we're in the depths or of despair as a country is not just African American or white or Hispanic. It's a country. It's a cultural thing. We started talking about what was going on in Soviet Union, and I'll break there and let us go to break.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
We can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Established in 2020 during a time of deep racial unrest across our state and country, the Black Freedom Fund was created to make sure that leaders and organizations working to support Black communities and build power have the resources they need to stay in the fight for the long haul. We believe that those closest to the issues impacting our communities know best how to solve them. That's why in just the last 5 years, we've granted more than $45 million to over 200 grassroots organizations across California. That is the largest collective investment in Black organizing in history, and we're just getting started. We are clear-eyed and committed, more now than ever, to our people, our power, and our possibility. Join us in creating a future where Black people harness their full power to shape their lives and realize a just world for all. Learn more at fundblackfreedom.org. That's fundblackfreedom.org. The Black Freedom Fund is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
In California, all workers have rights, no matter their immigration status. If you or a family member were detained by federal immigration authorities and did not receive your final paycheck, contact the Labor Commissioner's office. You can file a claim even if you left California or the U.S. Call 833-526-4636 from the U.S. or outside the country 001-833-526-4636. Document wage theft and report it to the Labor Commissioner's office.
Aging happens, but giving up what you love, that's optional. This holiday season, start a conversation with your family about building habits that support brain health and keep life fulfilling. With AARP's Staying Sharp, you'll find tools, videos, recipes, and even games to help make healthy living simple and fun. Don't just age, thrive. Visit stayingsharp.org/get started.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Wally drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays, and we are in conversations with Atiba. And Atiba, just before I let you finish that point, please share with our listeners how we can follow you, how we can support you, and about some of your work. the book
Oh man,
series.
that's a great. Thank you for that. So I wrote a book, and then on my website for the book, which is novelsbyatiba.com, I also wrote a series of 9 essays that are part of a bigger essay, which is putting people first. And and then also you can follow me on social media. It's just my first and last name on Facebook and on Instagram, as well as on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Your first and last name?
Atiba, A-T-I-B as in boy, A, last name Madyn.
Thank you, Atiba. Atiba, just before we came forward on the break, you wanted to make a point that I know that
Yeah.
the commercial interrupted. Go ahead, brother.
No, it's okay. Means I was talking too long. No, I'll just say, that we often don't want to be critical of ourselves. And even during the Obama years, I wrote several blogs at the time that some people were surprised that I wrote that weren't necessarily meant to criticize the president. But I don't believe that President Obama was as well served as he could have been had we been, and I shouldn't say just more critical, but more just assertive to say, we got you here, but we need you to do this. And we are going to push you to do this, because the reality is it's the people that push policy. You can try and get elected officials to do X, Y, and Z, but they won't do it unless you actually do it. That's why they say call your congressman, call your elected officials, write letters, do marches, show up at the Capitol. These are all ways to get them to know where our positions are. But where I was going with that too is that often we are we don't want to talk about the fact that we have issues, and I think that some of these issues, yes, are definitely grounded in some systemic things, and whether or not it's being able to have access to capital, whether or not it's high wage jobs or access to higher education. But there are things that we also can do. And of course, we say it starts with voting, but it's also deeper. And as you were mentioning before, in terms of registering people to vote, all those things are encompassed in all this. But ultimately, we all can be better as people, just as human beings, in terms of being empathetic. So I'm saying all that and kind of going around without necessarily touching where I had before the break, mostly because I don't want to come across as being critical, but I do think that there are things that the people want to see us do, and whether or not it's something as simple as pulling up our pants, or as simple as figuring out how do we work to get a better way forward. That's why I think we're going through a lot of the things that we're going through today, because not only have we lost hope, it's not just about having fear. I just think there's a sense of despair, and coming together, recognizing that we're all in this together, and that the issues that happen in an urban environment could be very similar to ones happening in a rural environment, even though we might not have the same color skin. All of these things are American issues, and all of us are brothers and sisters. And so I just feel like, just overall that it's okay for us to be critical, but it's also like to be critical from a standpoint of how do we get better.
I absolutely agree with that, and I can't improve upon that. I wish I had absolutely more time to share on this thought, and I know we'll pick back up on it in future conversations. Atiba, share with us your word of hope. We have about 4 minutes. Take your time.
So my hope right now, first off, is that we recognize that we still have the power to change our situation. And I'm very grateful that we took time today to talk about some historical things that may have happened in another country, and hopefully painted a picture that people recognize that is happening right here in this country. It's not too late to stop it, but the train has definitely left the building. That when I talk about voting, and when I wear a shirt that says midterms effing matter, and there is actually a website for that, that it is to shock us, to shock people that see it so that they want to wear the message and recognize that we are the spark behind any movement, that we can't just keep sitting back and just waiting for somebody to come save us. Because here's the truth. I'm going to use the word ain't nobody coming to save us but us. This is that time when we can look back at the civil rights movement and see the power of men and women and children locking arms and marching. This is the moment that we can look back and see, why did they call the World War II generation the greatest generation? This is the generation that brought forward Tuskegee Airmen. This is the generation that brought forward larger and louder voices talking about integration and segregation, because we went and fought in wars, but when we came home, we weren't allowed to be American. And when we go all the way back, I said earlier that I like to say that I am the hope and the dream of the slave. We all are the hope and the dream of the slave. And I even believe that there was something that happened for me being in South Africa a few years ago during the 20-year anniversary of the first free elections in South Africa. And I remember and recall the lines of people who stood in line for days to vote. And going into South Africa, going to Soweto, going to Pretoria, going to Cape Town, going to see these things, visiting Mandela's home, it made me think that they saw in us something and they took it, and that they saw something, they did things there that we can take. And so I'll kind of end it with this, and that is, it always seems impossible until it's done. And that makes so much sense. So my last words today of hope are, just remember, it always seems impossible until it's done.
Our conversations with Atiba always keep hope alive. Atiba, look forward to our conversation next week.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Dr. S. Todd Yeary.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago is racing to finalize its 2026 budget, with Black Mayor Brandon Johnson defending his proposed corporate head tax.
And if you've never gone hungry, you wouldn't know why I have that urgency.
He criticized aldermen pushing an alternative plan that includes higher trash and liquor fees. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back on the road with just weeks remaining in office. Today, he's in New Orleans for the African American Mayors Association and Combating Anti-Semitism Movement Conference. There, he'll join leaders from across the U.S. and North America to discuss strategies to fight anti-Semitism. And the Obama Presidential Center is set to open next June in Chicago's Jackson Park. The $800 million project faced delays from lawsuits and reviews, but began construction in 2021. The 20-acre site will feature a museum tower, library, auditorium, athletic center, park space, and a garden. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of his 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Celebrate the soul of the holidays and support Altadena and Pasadena. Join us on Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, a joyful night of Motor City Soul, gospel, and holiday classics featuring an 18-piece band, all-star vocalist, and community choirs, all in support of the Black LA Relief and Recovery Fund. This performance comes at a pivotal time for many in Altadena and Pasadena. This is their first holiday season since the devastating Altadena Eden Canyon fire, which destroyed homes and community spaces. While the physical losses are immense, the power of community remains, and your attendance directly supports recovery, resilience, and renewal. So, be sure to join us Monday, December 15th, 7